Hello, welcome back. My name is Sifu John Constantine. I'm the Chief Instructor and founder of AMA Wing Chun Kung Fu. So what I'd like to do in this short video is take you through the basics on how to train the Wing Chun Centreline Punch, which in my opinion is the most important and it's certainly the defining technique of the Wing Chun system. Stay tuned. Okay, so the Wing Chun Centreline Punch is the most important technique of the Wing Chun system. The technique's introduced and developed throughout the beginner stages of a Wing Chun practitioner's training journey, and the aim is to isolate and develop the basic shape, frame and structure of the technique. And obviously we want to start developing some additional qualities or concepts which you learn in the first form, which are basically balance, strength, speed and power. Now I'm obviously an advanced practitioner, therefore a lot of my training is not really done in the air anymore. Okay, so it's important for beginners to actually do lots of air training because your goal is to develop correct technique. However, my technique is pretty much instilled. It's there for me, it's there for life, which is one of the reasons why I got involved in martial arts, was to have a skill that belonged to me. But a lot of my training is basically done on a wall bag, which is there to develop the strength in the fist and obviously to really develop what I call imploding power, which is when you hit someone, they actually don't move back, they just pretty much fold and collapse. And obviously this bag is the ultimate training tool to develop your power. In addition to that, for my training, what I like to do as well is I like to use the knives. Now, I've completed the Wing Chun system, and I'm not really a fan of the weapons of Wing Chun because they're not very practical in the modern world. However, it's part of the art, and obviously you have to kind of train it because the weapons represent completion of the Wing Chun system. But the point I'm getting across is what I like to do is I like to use the knives because they're heavy, they've got some weight in them. The techniques are mapped closely to the empty hand techniques, but specifically the knives really will help train your speed and your power, and they will give you some kind of strength within the joints. So the knives are actually useful and beneficial to use when you're an advanced student, when you have grown tired of doing lots of air training. And the numbers that I recommend for my beginners are in the thousands. When I was a beginner, I was doing 3,000 air punches a week, and I was training on a wall bag for at least 20-30 minutes a day, 3 times a week, just to condition my hands. Obviously now I just do equipment and weapons training. The other training method that I like to use as well, which is very beneficial, it's actually, in my opinion, it's a lot harder than the knives because it's a heavy pole. And I've got two poles which are at the back. You've got the heavy traditional pole as such, and you've also got a light pole as well. So I actually believe that it's a good idea to train with a light pole to get the movements, to get some speed and accuracy in your movements. But I also like to train the heavy pole as well because that really is going to give you the short distance power that you need in your wrists, so that when you hit someone, you're actually going to get the result that you want, which is to knock them down and obviously to concuss or to stop them from attacking you. So the Wing Chun Centreline Punch, there's lots of different ways to train it. I'm going to take you through 3 exercises that focus on developing your technique. Then you're going to learn how to cultivate a bit of strength, and then you're going to learn how to develop power. And all those exercises are going to be done in the air because a beginner that's got no knowledge, it could be prone to injury because they're not familiar, so they certainly don't want to hit the wall bag straight away, and there's no point picking up the weapons because you just will not know what you're doing. So the exercises I'm picking hopefully are going to be relevant to your experience, your knowledge and your ability. Okay, so the first drill or exercise that we're going to go through is working on developing correct technique. So what I'd like you to do is open your basic stance. You're going to do that by showing your salutation, switch your mind on, make sure you're not going to be interrupted, and focus on your training, even if it's 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes focusing on something other than what's happening in your personal life. It's really good to have something to focus on, which is, it just involves you and obviously the development of a skill, because we need to train that creative part of the brain. So you form your basic stance. You make sure the width is correct. The inside of the feet are on the outside edge of the shoulders. The most important thing is just to tuck the tailbone under and obviously draw the navel back to the spine like I've taught you in previous videos, and just gently pull in and abduct with the thighs to create a strong, stable base. When you have that base and position, what I'd like you to do is open the hands and then push the left hand forward, followed by the right hand like so, so that your punch comes from a guard. Okay, so from this position, what I'd like you to do is drop your front hand and take a direct line to the target. I want you to loosely form a fist, and then I want you to slowly start to punch along the center line while simultaneously retracting your front hand back and underneath to form a new rear guard structure, which will look like that. Okay, so you've trained the center line guard. What's most important is that that rear guard comes in line with your own elbow. And obviously it's protecting your throat, and when your front hand's forward, it's protecting your eye line. So again, you drop the front hand, form a loose fist, and then slowly push the punch forward along the center line, squeeze the air out the fist, and then drop the elbow back to a center line guard position. So just try that, and I'm going to give you some tips to help with the technique. Okay, so the most important point about doing this first drill is to develop the correct shape, frame and structure of the Wing Chun Centreline Punch. You can always practice techniques, but if you've got poor technique, you are just practicing poor technique. You may be able to develop strength, speed and power, but the bottom line is you have poor technique, and that's really not what we're about in our organisation, and I hope it's certainly what you're not about when practicing Wing Chun Kung Fu. You want to have high standards, and you want to keep on striving to be better whenever you're training. So the key points with regards to the structure of the centerline punch, and I'd like you to refer back to the Sulim Tao video, the first section or the opening of the first form, because it takes you through the structure of the centerline punch. However, the basics of the centerline punch are very simple. You are to throw your punch directly along the center line like so. Your elbow position is not going to be out like that. You have to literally take the elbow and turn it so that it's facing down towards the floor, so that you've got support from your body. If your elbow is out, then the elbow can buckle, which means when you hit someone, it will pop out, which means generally you haven't got your body weight behind the technique. So when you're practicing the centerline punch, it's very important that your elbow is down like so. Your fist is obviously in a vertical position. You're striking with the middle and the bottom two. They're the two main knuckles that you're learning to hit with. They're your striking tools. And you make sure that there is no break in the wrist whatsoever. You're generally, for a beginner, you are hitting with a flat vertical fist which has the structure and support of the elbow, which is pointing down, which is obviously in alignment with the shoulder, and the shoulders are square throughout the movement. They're not actually turning or rotating into the punch. So for the first drill that I'm prescribing, what I'd like you to do is punch and keep your shoulders square as you do the movement so that you maintain the integrities that you've learned from the first form, because ultimately we want to develop correct technique and we want to be structurally correct. So try those basics and we'll move on to the second drill. Okay, so now that you have some kind of technique that we can start to work with, obviously you would throw a lot of those techniques. If I was kind, I'd say do 100. If I was being my typical normal self, I would say 500 or 1,000 centerline punches in the air to focus on correct technique. So let's assume that you have developed the correct technique. You're structurally correct. You're punching along the center line. Your fist is in line with the bridge of your nose. Your elbow is slightly out but tucked down, and obviously it's supported by your elbow. I'm not going to go into too much detail about how other lineages throw centerline punches, but there is other styles that do encourage you to put the elbow behind the wrist on the center line so that you're occupying the center line. Now, I don't have a problem with other people's interpretations, but the bottom line is it's not the approach, it's not how we do that in AMA Wing Chun Kung Fu. But by all means, please investigate, research and study those ideas, because I'm certainly interested in why people do what they do, and maybe people will be interested in why I do what I do. The bottom line is, for me, a punch is a punch. If I'm in a self-defense situation, as long as I've got good technique, good structure, and I throw that and I hit with speed and power, if it does the job, then great. So if your centerline punch does the job with your elbow in, you can't really be wrong, because you're actually stopping someone, you're hitting someone. But in terms of structure and support, it's not the approach that I follow. So the next drill is going to be dedicated towards developing strength. And one of the ways that we develop strength is to do an isometric contraction at the end of each technique to obviously condition the muscles to contract at a specific moment in time or on the extension of a joint. And obviously you would do that with every technique, however we're doing this with the centerline punch. So you're in your basic stance, your hands up like so, you're going to drop the front hand, you're going to form a loose fist, you're going to throw the centerline punch forward along the center line, you're going to throw the technique quite fast as well. However, as you get upon full extension, I want you to squeeze the air out of the fist, and I want you to hold the fist for 2 seconds. Then drop the hand back towards the centerline guard. So I'm learning to relax, contract, and then relax. And obviously a core feature of the Wing Chun Centreline Punch is when we throw techniques, we don't actually pull the technique back and recoil like I was taught to do in Taekwondo. There's nothing wrong with that, but in Wing Chun Kung Fu we want to punch, and we want to relax on the surface, and we want to leave the hand forward because we want to gather some information. We want to keep it as a bridge. So in application, the centerline punch can be used as a tool to knock somebody out, and it can also be used as a tool to bridge and establish contact so that you could perhaps use a different technique. So this next drill, what I want you to do, keep your hands forward nice and strong. We're not having a soft guard. Push your hands forward. It's why you do this in the form. Your arm is straight and you're projecting forward energy so that when you put your guard forward, you're used to projecting forward energy. That's another concept from how we translate the informations from the form into the context of sparring and self-defense. If you think of Wing Chun Kung Fu, you want forward energy. If you're placing your guard forward, your hands are forward, they need to be strong. They have to be you have to create a bridge and a barrier that your opponent must pass. At the same time, in the context of self-defense, you want to place your hands forward, and the most efficient way to do that is just to hit people. It really is a simple art. So, from this position, drop the front hand, form a loose fist, accelerate, squeeze, and then drop back. Accelerate, squeeze, and drop back. Accelerate, squeeze, and drop back. accelerate, squeeze, and drop back. I would like you to do 3 sets of 10. However, when you get more experience and you're not thinking about what you're doing, I want you to do 3 sets of 100 on the centerline punch, specifically to develop strength in the fist, strength in the elbow, strength in the shoulder joint, and obviously you're contracting your core, you're tucking your tailbone under, pulling the navel back to your spine so that you've got a strong, stable base. And if you've done the video on the Wing Chun basic adductor stance, you'll know that if you contract and hold your backside and you pull in your legs and you punch, your arms, you will be able to punch a hell of a lot stronger. And certainly when you get on the wall bag and you start punching, you do not want to have a loose stance. You want to be pushing through the floor and you want to be accelerating and driving all your power within your system into the heavy bag. Okay, so we've covered 2 drills so far. One of those drills is developing correct technique. We're not worried about strength, speed or power. We're making sure that the structure is correct. By that I mean you've got your fist on the center line, your wrist is straight, your elbows pointing down to the floor, and your shoulders are square, and you're obviously contracting your core and you're squeezing the air out the fist, and you're progressively and slowly learning to relax, contract, and then relax on the surface of your target, whatever that may be. And we're not recoiling the hands back because we want to leave the hands forward because we want to bridge the chi out. So I'm someone that actually likes to use the centerline punch as a bridge because it covers me in offense and defense, and it just allows me to put a bit of pressure on and obviously get into that close range. So the third drill is really all about developing power. And for a beginner, we're developing that power by punching in the air because we don't want to hit a wall bag because it will wreck our hands. And we certainly haven't got the knowledge and the skill to pick up a weapon. So the final drill is all about power. So what I want you to do is from this position, lower your front guard, throw the punch forward and just let it go. So the punch in Wing Chun Kung Fu is really determined, or a punch is determined by how much you let go. It's not how much you hold back and recoil. What I'm encouraging you to do is just to throw the punch forward, form a tight fist and contract on full extension. If the distance is correct, you're going to hit on the person's center line, which is the target we're going for, is the bridge of the nose. So your training would look like this. You're here and you punch. Punch. So you're just punching in the air. And the purpose of doing that is to develop the kind of energy that we need, which is a hard and soft energy. So we're just teaching you to relax and throw a centerline punch forward along the center line. The only thing you need to focus on is being relaxed, contract, and then relax. So I want you to try that and then join me for the conclusion. Okay, so there you have it. That is the Wing Chun Centreline Punch taught over 3 exercises, which is one of the ways that we develop the centerline punch in our organisation. Like I said, when a beginner has spent 3, maybe 6 months practicing those drills, developing correct technique, developing the strength and the structure, and then obviously learning to throw the punch forward and develop the energy, the kind of power that we need, it's only then that you want to start working on the wall bag. And for me, the wall bag, it's the best piece of equipment for punching. You can use focus pads, you can train like a boxer. I certainly do a lot of that training as well because I'm qualified with Hatton Academy. It's good, boxing's great, it teaches you to go toe to toe, lots of different skills that you may not learn in the Wing Chun system. But ultimately, you want to hit this wall bag and you want to develop the inch punch and you want to develop short distance power. When you've got those skills and you become a little bit more experienced, I recommend that you pick up the knives and you work the straight punch within the context of the knives, and I certainly recommend you pick up a pole. It's really hard work. It is going to be painful. You might enjoy it. I certainly don't enjoy it because, you know, I've been training for a long time. Pain's not nice as such, but it's something that you have to go through, and obviously pain is really your best teacher and coach. Train those exercises, and then when we're out of lockdown, I'll obviously try and put together some drills for you that's going to help you practice the core theories and concepts or the principles of the art. And obviously, how do you work the centerline punch with a partner within the context of lock sao, which is rolling arms, single chi sao, which is your first stage into sticky hands, and obviously how would you apply the centerline punch within the context of double sticky hands. Like I've said, for me now, training in Wing Chun Kung Fu is all about making it simpler. And when you've been training in Wing Chun for as long as me, you actually start to realize that Wing Chun is a very simple system, and it becomes a lot more simpler when you start training in the Wing Chun system and start developing your own experience. And obviously it's important that you have conversations, you actually train with people that are obviously of a high level of skill, knowledge and ability than you, so that you can develop as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to give me any feedback, you can contact me through my Facebook page, Amma Wing Chun Kung Fu. There are comments that you can put on the YouTube channel as such, just to raise a discussion, but you can contact me through my website, www.ammawingchun.com. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time when I'm going to help you train the double punch, which is basically 2 centerline punches thrown along the centerline. It's not a practical technique. It doesn't work within the context of street self-defense, but it is the beginner's training exercise to progressively learn how to develop short distance power. I'll see you soon.